Hello there, welcome to Saberduelgaming, where we always take the high ground. Of all the retro consoles that I have love for, one of the few that I've never actually owned myself is the Sega Mega Drive. I had a friend who owned a Sega Mega Drive whilst I owned the SNES, and we would regularly swap consoles and spend hours playing each other's games, so I have a lot of experience playing it despite never owning it. The Sega Mega Drive was one of the two big 16-bit consoles that had massive success in the 90s and have continued to hold a very popular place in everyone's heart. The one console that was truly a challenge to Nintendo's vice grip on gaming has been revisited many times, and its massive library of games continue to be loved to this day. So now it's time for me to have a look at 6 of the best Sega Mega Drive games of all time in no particular order, and we start with number 6. It is Golden Axe. The first of many games on this list that had sequels that could just as easily have been put on it, but with all of these I've generally gone with the first. Golden Axe was an arcade classic that was massively beloved. You have your 3 characters to play as: the Valkyrie, Barbarian and Dwarf. You have a mixture of side-scrolling slash and bash, throw, and of course a healthy dose of rather impressive magic with amazing visuals for the time. Golden Axe was available on some other computer consoles as well, however it was the Sega Mega Drive version that, apart from the arcade, was in my opinion the best. Whilst looking back now, Golden Axe is kind of limited. The game is still a national treasure. It's an absolute icon of retro gaming and is one of the most popular games the Sega Mega Drive ever housed. It's still fun to go back and play now and deserves to be on this list. Number 5. It is Disney's Aladdin. There isn't much to say with this. Everyone knows that this game is an absolute classic and one of the best movie to game adaptations of all time. The only debate in this is whether the SNES or Mega Drive version is the best, and boy there is a hefty debate online. I'm not even going to get into it too much. I've played both versions of the game, I enjoyed both. I'm not going to get into a winner on this one. I will just say that the Sega Mega Drive version is great. Number 4. Streets of Rage. There is certainly a debate to be had as to which Streets of Rage is the best, and with Streets of Rage 2 and 3 also available on the Mega Drive, any one of them could have taken this place, but I'm simply going to go with the first and say that it certainly represents the franchise very well. Coming at a time where 1v1 beat-em-ups were starting to dominate the market in this type of game, this series still held out super strong, and on the Sega Mega Drive, this was something spectacular, and certainly eclipsed games like Double Dragon in my opinion. The music was particularly iconic in this game, at least in my opinion. It's certainly one that I will always remember, and of course the cutscenes where you use your special attack and bring in a police car with a grenade launcher or rocket launcher, whichever it was, is still so cool to see. A fantastic game and fantastic fun to play. Number 3. Earthworm Jim. I think he's mighty fine. This game is ridiculous. It's a real challenge. It's so hard to play. It's a genuine, I wouldn't say chore, but it really makes you work hard for it considering how light-hearted and silly the game seems. It was really well put together and is certainly no easy feat to complete. Absolutely filled to the brim with quirky, funny little Easter eggs and comments, little random nods. It's just a joy to play. A game that was so successful, not only did it have sequels, it had its own cartoon series thrown out there at a time where only Mario and Sonic really got that treatment. Why this game never really went on to have as much of a franchise as I think it deserved, I'll never know. It was a lot of fun to play, but it was quite difficult as well. That said, it was still a fantastically fun game, and because it was so quirky and funny, you didn't mind going back in and giving it one more try. even when it was really testing your patience. The gameplay was fun, the graphics and visuals were so impressive and diverse. It wasn't just left and right, it was scenes where you're jumping using your, well, body as a rope and climbing up. Fantastic game. Number 2. Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition. Across the two big 16-bit consoles, there was a whole flurry of back and forth versions of Street Fighter 2. But this being the original version that came out on the Sega Mega Drive, I'm going with this one. It was, at the time, the best version of the game, and whilst I would argue Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the SNES would go on to eclipse it, it was fine margins. This was the first time we got to play as the 4 bosses as well, which was a massively big deal. The gameplay wasn't quite as smooth as it was on the SNES, with only having 3 buttons instead of the 6. However, it was still one of the best games on the Sega Mega Drive by far. It was one of the best games of all time, and even now, it's fantastic to play. And number 1, Sonic the Hedgehog. Come on, was there really any doubt it was going to be this? Sega's own Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog was brought in to really push the Sega Mega Drive as having its own Mario, its own console header, and it certainly did just that. Games like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and 3, number 2 is the one we're seeing here right now, would go on to build on the success of the first Sonic the Hedgehog. However, the original was truly the most iconic. In designing Sonic the Hedgehog, the creators were not just trying to emulate Mario, but almost overcome it. And the main thing they considered in doing that was speed. They even pointed out how slow Super Mario was, referencing that that was a game for your parents, while Sonic the Hedgehog was the cool one for kids. It was an approach that was seen in their advertisements, and it worked. For a period of time, Sega Mega Drive, and with it Sonic the Hedgehog, was the coolest one to have. SNES was a classic, as was Mario, but Sonic the Hedgehog was much more vivid, colourful, sharp looking, and it certainly achieved that. Even these bonus scenes were visually so much more impressive than some of the Mario games we'd seen. A lot of debate is out there as to how good the Sonic games were, and whether or not they were ever really a true challenge for Mario. However, financially they certainly did the job. They were massively successful, and Sonic himself from this one game became the face of Sega. But what do you think? Comment below and let me know what your top 6 games are for the Sega Mega Drive, and until next time, take the high ground.